We have featured the organisation Hope Not Hate previously on Windows on the World. See our show Hope Not Hate and Israel's Lobbyists. We have also featured the subversive tactics used by this organisation against people who are acting responsibly and within the law. The Hope Not Hate website states, "We are passionate believers in liberty and free speech." It has been revealed recently that this group are acting as what could legally be described as a terrorist organisation. Here is the commonly used dictionary definition of terrorism: the systematic use of violence and intimidation to achieve some goal, and the use of violence and threats to intimidate or coerce, especially for political purposes. There have been allegations of publishing photographs and addresses of people they have targeted, setting up fake Twitter accounts to discredit people, and threats and actual violence by those associated with this organisation. So Hope Not Hate targets whoever they personally feel fits their interpretation of hate. The organisations, political parties and the people they target are bound by the laws of the land they operate in. So why can this group act as vigilantes and incite hatred against citizens of the UK who are acting within the law? On the Hope Not Hate website it states, "Hope Not Hate seeks to challenge and defeat the politics of hate and extremism within local communities, building resilience against the politics of hate and fear at a national and grassroots level. In order to maximise our contribution to the debate and comply with all UK legislation, Hope Not Hate operates via two separate and distinct legal entities, through which we deliver a range of activities and services. So let's look at its obligations as a charitable trust. To be a charity, your charity must have only charitable purposes, which must be for the public benefit. This is known as the public benefit requirement. The trustee's annual report must explain how the trust has carried out its purpose for the public benefit." On the Hope Not Hate website it states, "We are passionate believers in liberty and free speech." On Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2017, Hope Not Hate posted information that a talk by Nick Colostrum was being held at Diorama Arts Centre. The article stated that Colostrum was a Holocaust denier. The author Joe Mulhall is on the board of the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. However, the talk had nothing to do with any Holocaust anywhere whatsoever. The group has never discussed any Holocaust. The post stated, "Leading Holocaust denier speaking in central London tonight. The Keep Talking group run by Ian Phantom for conspiracy theorists of all types, from Holocaust deniers, climate change deniers and 9/11 truthers. Its past guests include Piers Corbyn, brother of Jeremy, who claimed man-made climate change is a lie." Well, yes, it is, and it's been proven. So, everything on the site is like an exercise in basic psychological subversion. The question is, do these propagandists actually believe all this, or are they themselves victims of the type of propaganda they now peddle on behalf of global financial interests? Or is all this coming through them as third-party agents of the intelligence services, as their tactics mirror those of military intelligence and include the 4 Ds: deny, disrupt, degrade and deceive? Kevin, you were at the meeting that was disrupted.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I was just walking towards this place. I didn't know where I was going. I was looking for it. And this guy was coming the other way, saying, "Don't go down there." I knew his face from previous meetings, and he was saying it was dangerous and I shouldn't go. And he was going away and he wasn't coming back. And anyway, I did go down there and have a look. And it was just like, you have to show the photographs, Mark. I mean, what it looks like. It's just these people. You walk into for a meeting, which we've had these going for years actually. It's the old 9/11 group that split up. London 9/11 Truth. We got to discuss things, issues, and investigate things to find truth. So you walk into this paved area. And suddenly, all these masked people dressed in black and others waving RMT flags are going, fascist scum off our streets, fascist scum off our streets, and it's like anyway, and then James Thring was there, 74-year-old peace activist who spent the entire last decade trying to get the parliamentarians to pursue Tony Blair about the Iraq War. He said he'd just been knocked over, and he pointed at the guy who did it. I didn't see that, but he was quite shaken. And he's a pacifist. I mean, and they're going, no, I didn't say Thring, fascist, so-and-so, but, you know, it was like being in a parallel universe. I mean, there's nobody on this earth less like a Nazi than James Thring, or, in my opinion, me either. Or, you know, we're just not that kind of person. So it was a shocking environment to just amble into. And they're the two. I had my phone knocked out of my hand. I engaged these people in conversation, but it was rather unpleasant, but kind of puzzling. I mean, what were they doing there? How did that happen? It made no sense.
Looking at the history of this, it was an organisation called Searchlight. Okay. And then around 2009, a lot of videos were appearing on YouTube about the European elections, and their stated enemy at the time was the BNP. Okay. And what they were doing was putting out all these videos of multicultural society, people talking about vibrant diversity, all the usual stuff, and they were getting members of the clergy from the church to talk about Hope Not Hate was a great idea, it was going to bring people together. It was all the stuff that we know and hear to this day, which is basically part of the one world government agenda, which everyone's getting drawn into. So we know they were broadly a part of that. But what seems to have happened is this group are now using terrorist tactics against people who are obeying the law. And this country, the political parties that it's attacking are now things like UKIP especially, and Nigel Farage, who cannot really be described as an extremist. So it looks like this organisation, to keep going, needs to find an enemy. There has to be an enemy, and they're looking for enemies anywhere. But there seems to be a very misguided management structure within this organisation, or is it something else? Because it's looking more like an intelligence services operation to me. What do you think about that?
Yes, I agree. Obviously, you think about it a lot after it's happened. At the time, I was looking at these people and I'm thinking, well, Nazis, fascists, that's what their behaviour was like. These young people are coming up to you, to your face, and saying, "You're lucky. We normally beat up people like you Nazis." You know, and they were literally restraining themselves from hitting us. That was the feeling you got, and it was that a lot of them had their faces covered. There was 2 or 3 people you couldn't even see their eyes, or like face and black goggles on. You know, like I don't know if they were trying to be scary or what, but it was bizarre. And you know our group, Mark. I mean, that's where I met you, in the group, and it's the whole thing is it's very anti-establishment, and it's also very kind of peace-driven, and it's all about truth, really, this kind of thing. And so, really, if these people, it's really like an inversion, you know.
It's total inversion.
It's an inversion of everything. It's like what I think is going on, and I mean, I'm sure. You'll say stuff about it, is that the people funding these organisations who turn up en masse, they're obviously funded by somebody, the people funding them are trying to define anything which is critical of government and seriously dangerous to government, which I think a lot of the information that we discuss is, they're trying to define us as haters, as people who hate. And they try and do that with Nigel Farage too. He hates immigrants. Well, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just thinks that immigration is not very good for the working class of this country. You know, maybe he thinks that it serves corporate interests rather than British interests. Maybe he thinks it's breaking up and damaging the indigenous culture of this country. Those are fair views in my view. But it's an argument you're not allowed to make all you're allowed to be seen as is somebody who hates immigrants,
Well,
which is
on their
nonsense,
website, fundraiser to get the public to fund their court case against Nigel Farage, which is a bit ironic because they are funded by government and they're funded by people through their charity. They've had donations from Soros's Open Foundation, etc. So this is a big funded operation. So why are they asking the public to sue Nigel Farage when he's part of a democratic party in this country, for a comment that he made, which was basically saying that they were extremists, they were encouraging extremism, which they clearly are. So that could be.
It's hard to disagree with him, isn't it?
Yes,
it's actually really hard to disagree with Farage.
What they say about him and what they connect him with gives him, ironically, grounds to countersue them.
It looks like shutting people like us down.
Yeah.
And anyone. We are genuinely anti-establishment. I mean, I believe 9/11 was an inside job, and that is completely the reality behind that. I couldn't believe it when I was told. Like other things, my friend here, Nick, told me, when he told me what he'd written about the Holocaust, and my exact words to him were, "You must be mad to say a thing like that." And then you look into it, and you nearly faint with shock at the lies you've been told. And this is the stuff we're interested in. And this is the material that is forbidden. And these organisations exist, in my view now, since that experience, they exist to shut us down. And I think the next thing we'll see probably is parallel investments and efforts going on the internet. But it won't work, Mark. It'll never work. It's just not going to work. Because it's out there now, and the whole zeitgeist, the whole feeling is anti-internationalism, anti-globalism, because we know we're being manipulated by liars and crooks who are funding every organisation, and we get no impartial information of any kind in the mainstream media. None. So once that's realised by people, the games is starting to be over, I think. Please God.
A very encouraging point you've just made, but the thing is that they are now being used as attack dogs, and we obviously know that they massively are being pushed by the Israeli lobby, because Ruth Smith is a director of Hope Not Hate. We've covered this before. She's incited a lot of what you could call hatred against Jeremy Corbyn.
The big picture is very simple. The Western governments are under the control of international finance, and anybody they don't control is their enemy, be it Russia, Iran, or some silly little group that meets to talk about what the truth is in central London. You are defined as the enemy of the state simply because they don't control you, and that's Corbyn's problems too.
Yes.
You know, he came in and they didn't control him. He was like not one of their. It all happened in a way they outside their control, and they can't bear this stuff because it scares them. And that's it in a nutshell.
So let's just get back to the meeting. The point of it is that this was a peaceful meeting, which was doing nothing illegal. It wasn't inciting hatred against anybody or any particular group. So it was completely lawful. And a group turned up of vigilantes who...
I felt sorry for them too, actually, some of them.
Okay.
They're a bit simple, you know.
Yes.
I mean, they just didn't know stuff. They were angry. They were the kind of characters. I spoke to some of these young people, and they were young, you know, and a lot of people have chips on their shoulder, justifiably. When you talk to them, you know, a lot of them had experienced racism, and they hated racists. Fair enough. And they hated Nazis. Fair enough. And if you speak to the skinhead types, who they aim their, you know, the kind of BNP type people, they've got chips on their shoulder for good reason. Everyone's got good reasons for their anger if you delve into it. But nonetheless, you can feel a bit of pity for them because they didn't really know much. They were misdirected, Mark, you know.
That's what I mean. They're being manipulated.
They're being manipulated.
Yes.
And, you know, if you spent half an hour with them, they'd be your friends, these people. I'm not kidding. You would. They just, you know, they're kind of a bit simple to me. They're kids who are being used.
But it looks like this operation is turning into sort of a paramilitary thing in America with Antifa, the anti-fascists who unite with Hope Not Hate. They're part of the same group, really.
It's global, isn't it?
Yes.
And that tells you everything.
Yeah.
That tells you.
Yeah.
No, when you got, I mean, that tells you it's international finance is the issue here. Ultimately, that's what it is.
Before we go to the break, tell us what happened when the police arrived.
Well, They were all right. I mean, they said they have a right to protest, you have a right to a meeting, and they were going to get us in the back way, but the premises manager shut it down, and the meeting was cancelled. So it was, these guys won, if you like. In fact, it was far more interesting what happened than any meeting normally. No offence, Nick, but it was actually a really interesting evening because of what we saw going on there. One thing, a little moment that was quite funny, Mark, was when one of our members, who happens to be West Indian, who sells books at the meetings and videos, he went into his bag for some reason, and one of these protesters, these anti-Nazi, anti-racist protesters, they saw him open his bag and they saw all the videos and books there, and they said, "Did you nick that?" Did you nick those books? And it was like, yeah, okay. And he confronted them on that. He said, "Are you stereotyping me because of my skin colour?" And then there was a bit of a retreat went on. But you know what I mean. They're kind of idiotic. These people, really.
Yeah.
A bit sad.
It looks like this organisation are now shutting down anybody that they don't like, and speakers around the country have been reporting this.
Yes.
So their original stated enemy was the BNP. Now it's UKIP, which is a pretty moderate party, really, and anybody they don't like. Welcome back to Windows on the World. I'm going to talk to Dr. Nick Colostrum now, as his talk, which was about the Westminster Bridge attack, was the reason used by Hope Not Hate to associate Nick as being a Holocaust and climate change denier and whatever else they put in the article, which you can see at the beginning of this show, and another show actually about Hope Not Hate, which is a follow-up which goes into the background of what they're really about and what it actually says on their website. So Nick, welcome to Windows on the World, and you were doing a talk at the Diorama Arts Centre on the Westminster Bridge attack, and an article appeared on the Hope Not Hate website saying that at 7:15 at the Diorama Arts Centre and the address Drummond Street, you were going to be giving a talk, and because you had written a book about the Holocaust and you were obviously some sort of Nazi, that a load of thugs should basically turn up and at least picket the event. So when you got down there, or when these people arrived as you were in the building, what were your immediate thoughts?
Well, it's a bit of a shock, Mark. I mean, we've got this lovely new premises, the Diorama Arts Centre, and I'd assured the manager there we were just a quiet chat group. We didn't advertise our meetings publicly, no public adverts, and no web presence. We're just people who like to get together and have a chat about current events. You might say we take a conspiratorial sort of angle on events, but nobody's ever been offended by or upset by our meetings, And so there we are, and suddenly this group of big burly fellows turn up with enormous flags. It was Union flags, and didn't know what they were, and they obviously get very angry, and they were quite angry, and so it's a very extraordinary concept, this, that because of something book I'd written several years ago, therefore they were going to stop a public meeting which was nothing to do with it, and they were trying to brand us as right wing, far right.
And that's the very important point that we've made through this show, Nick, is that this is not an overtly political group, is it? It's really a discussion group.
Yeah, we are apolitical. We don't campaign for anything, and I would say we're always proud of having a mingling of left-wing and right-wing people together in our group. They chat together, they get on together, different views, and that's exactly what we want.
Yes, exactly. So
For example, the previous meeting had been about what brought down the towers. Somebody a theory that some nukes were used to bring down the Twin Towers on 9/11. And that's just, we're, as I think you said earlier, we're inheriting the old 9/11 Truth group in London, and we metamorphosed into a somewhat more broader based discussion. And this meeting, we were due to have a look at whether the Westminster Bridge episode was quite what it appeared to be. And clearly there's a well-organised power based on deception that didn't want us to do it.
Yes, well, very clearly. I mean, the people down there, they were really not there for the reasons that they thought they were.
No, and they appeared to be this big union, and then people started telling me, oh no, it's not really that union, it's something else called Hope Not Hate. And so I emailed the union, the secretary of the union, and I got a letter back saying, no, it's nothing to do with us. Don't know where they got the flags from, can't imagine. Nothing to do with us. And there was no name on the letter, haven't signed it. So we're still mystified by if this group Hope Not, and they look also like Antifa, as I said, wearing masks, and which I'm actually surprised if demonstrations are legal in this country by masked people.
Well, when the anonymous march happens on the 5th of November, people are now told to remove their masks or they can't go on the march.
There you go, right. So I think the police, and the police didn't do anything, I think because they're intimidated by this flags, this well-respected union being there. And then we're told, I was told, no, actually it's nothing to do with our union, no. I don't know where they got flags from. But it evidently was. I think there were people evidently connected with that union who were there. So
I think that there were people who were connected to people within the union. Yes, there's no doubt about that. But again, I think there has been a bit of deception used to get the union down there. I've spoken to the General Secretary,
right.
Who was in attendance,
right.
And we haven't got a direct quote, but it appears to me that people are coerced into this as they were against you, because basically they were took down there on a false premise. They were saying, oh, it's this guy's a Nazi and a Holocaust denier, but the talk had nothing to do with that. So again, they're using deception.
Discussion is banned, and we've got this aggravation. It's basically hate, not hope. That's what it is. They're generating hate, the language of hate, the appearance and manifestation of hate, and they're extinguishing what we believe in, our hopes for being able to find the truth by getting together and discussing the matter. And who is bothered? Are the police going to take any action? The people at Diorama, they're not giving us our money back. We lost 140 quid for that meeting, and they just say, oh, something you caused somehow.
Well, there are remedies within the law for that, and obviously the liability is down to them being the people who cancelled the meeting. You never cancelled the meeting.
They did decide to cancel the meeting.
That's okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the thing is, though, that this group are being allowed to get away with it, as you just said.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, I mean, you've been looking at this stuff for a very long time, would you say that they're merely an extension of British intelligence security services? Because that's how they seem to be acting, as we stated earlier.
They might be, yeah.
Yes.
I can't really answer that.
No.
Difficult.
I said in your opinion,
question,
not whether you knew.
Yeah, I would say there's some strong Israeli type motivation. Hope not hate. I would say it has that flavour to it.
Well, Ruth Smith, who is an Israeli agent, an agent for Israel, and indeed has been on the board of BICOM, and has caused terrible problems for Jeremy Corbyn within the Labour Party through this alleged anti-Semitism, and has also accepted funding from Israeli arms dealer Paolo Zabludovich, the RMT MP. Ruth Smith, is really a big part of Hope Not Hate.
Well, I would just appeal to people of all flavours of the political spectrum to say, we must believe in free speech. It's got to be precious to us. If places with venues, public venues, are saying, sorry, we can't let you have this because so-and-so might object to what you're talking about, I mean, we've got to say, our culture, our traditional British culture, we do believe in freedom of expression, freedom of speech, as long as you're not intimidating anybody, which we're not.
Exactly. And they're going around calling people fascists when they are acting as a fascist mob. They are now, by definition, a fascist mob. Do you agree with that, or is that too strong?
Well, the term fascist never has to be defined.
Exactly.
Obviously, it's just a pure hate term. In a way, these groups, they empty the terms of all meaning, their political terms. They become pure hate terms, pure vehicles of hate. That's really what they want, language of hate, where the terms don't have to be defined, and they can hurl it against anyone that they want to. I think they've gone too far in attacking Nigel Farage. I think people understand this is getting rather silly.
It is, and they also have given him grounds to counter-sue. But I talked to one of these protesters, at a recent, was it EDL and the Britain First mob, and the anti-fascist mob all met down at Whitehall. It was all very quickly shut down and didn't really happen, but I asked one or two of the protesters who they were protesting against, and one of them said fascists. I said, what do you mean by fascist? And it was a very uncomfortable moment because that could not be defined.
No.
So they said, well, the people here. I said, who are the people here? They said, well, racists. I said, so fascists are racists. Okay, by racist, do you mean somebody who's xenophobic or afraid or in fear of foreigners, or are you referring to people who are against mass immigration? Because those are two very different things. And the second one has nothing whatsoever to do with racism. It's about protecting the interests of your own country and your own people. And that includes everyone who's already here. So they were very, very angry at that point and said I was tricking them, and they stormed off. So this is a message to all those people. Think before you go on these marches or these demonstrations. And if there's somebody who you're being told to incite hatred against, look into that person and see if what you're being told is true. That's it from Windows on the World, and we'll see you very soon. Welcome to Windows on the World. I'm Mark Windows. Now, over the years, we've put out a lot of information. The Windows on the World show has run for several years now. We've exposed corruption, found solutions, and put out some very useful information on many subjects since we started doing this. This includes, of course, the bigger picture, along with well-researched history, science, and, of course, health matters, which we also cover. Now, our initial website was landofthefree.co.uk, and this was set up to fight the corporate courts, rogue bailiffs, and the unlawful actions of public officials. I and many others have successfully fought criminal bailiff companies and won in court against dishonest councils. This information is all still available. The journalistic integrity of Windows on the World is very important, and we tried to put out information that's forensically accurate and simplistic as possible. So we try and put everything out in a very easy way for people to understand, because over the years there's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation, especially with where people stand within the law, and it's got a lot of people into trouble. So we've always stayed on the right side of the law, but being able to empower people to go into court and do the right thing, that's very important to us. Now, I put this information out to the public because I feel it needs to be there. And even within so-called alternative media, there is much information which is misleading and incorrect. In fact, all the things the now ridiculous mainstream media accuses the alternative media of, there are people putting out stuff that's very, very unhelpful, and we try not to do that. So we accept no funding from anybody and are completely independent. And it's now increasingly necessary that we get some help to fund what we're doing. We're looking for sponsors from self-employed small business sector, which, as we know, is being destroyed, and we cover this a lot on the show with the plans for regeneration, the soaring business rates, and the destruction of what we used to know as our environment, because we're finding that people now are being pushed out and socially engineered from the places that they need to be. We'd also like to appeal to individuals who might be able to donate. Now, the donate button on the site, you can just scroll down to the bottom of the page, and it's also on every article and every video on the site, on windowsontheworld.net. Now, I've never asked for any donations before, but things are getting a bit tighter for us, and we want to carry on and expand what we're doing. That's the most important thing, to expand what we're doing and be able to bring you much more information, which is very difficult at the moment because there's just a few of us. So, the bottom line is, if you can spare a few quid and enjoy what we're doing, press the donate button. We'll be very grateful. And if there's anybody out there, small businesses, who benefit from the sort of information that we put out, and we know there's quite a few because we've been contacted by them, if you'd like to make a small contribution or help out in any way, we'd be most grateful. That's the end of that, and we'll see you soon on Windows on the World.